The guys that I have the great honor of hanging with today at VH1 Classic make up 2/3 of a trio which really helped to define arena rock. They've released so many classic albums, so many countless sold-out tours, and received many awards both in their native Canada and, of course, right here in America. Have you figured out yet who I'm talking about? Of course, I'm talking about Rush, a band that I have been a fan of for so many years, and it is great to welcome Geddy Lee.
Hey.
Great to see you, Geddy.
Nice to see you.
Alex Lifeson.
Very nice to see you.
Great to see you guys again. You guys are getting ready to come off vacation, but you have a great, great DVD, which has arrived in stores to chronicle your 30th anniversary, which we definitely need to tell you about. Why are critics calling Rush R30 the definitive live-in-concert rock and roll DVD extravaganza? Well, 14 high-definition cameras were used to capture the band's concert in Frankfurt, Germany on September 24th, 2004. And the band's set that night spanned their entire legendary career. So, guys, congratulations on what I guess I should say 31 years now, because we're at the end of 2005 already, and the first Rush album was 74. But since we're talking about the history of the band here, and we'll get to plenty about the new DVD in a minute, it actually, the band dates back actually to the late 60s, if I'm not mistaken, with the two of you guys, right? Talk about the earliest history of Rush. When did it actually start that you two guys got together and started making music? Was it around 68, 68?
Well, Geddy and I played for about a year before we started the band, which would have been 1960, well, late 67, 68. We did our first gig together as Rush on September 18th, 1968.
How can you remember that?
I know, it sticks in my head.
That's a historic moment, though. That's one day.
We played in the church basement at a drop-in center, and we knew, I think, 8 songs, and we just played the 8 songs over and over for an audience of about 30 people.
Cover or original songs?
All
Covers.
covered.
Yeah.
Well, I just joined the band that day.
Right.
Okay.
Because they had another bass player, and at the last minute he didn't show. So they called me up and said, "Can you fill in?" So I came in and we ran over some material, and that's why we only had 8 songs.
Yeah. But we got paid $10 that night, and
we went to local deli and had chips with gravy right
and
after.
planned out our future.
Yeah. Wow, and here we are 37
years later.
7 years later, and you guys are still making tremendous music. It's funny because the first album is a record that I absolutely love, and a lot of people don't realize that, unless they're real hardcore Rush fans and have the record and know it inside out, that Neil is not on the first record. You had a drummer named John Rutsey that played on that record. And Neil is obviously such a big part of Rush as well that people kind of don't even realize that there is a record that he isn't on. Talk to me a little bit about how you found Neil, and when he came into the band, the contributions he made, not only as a drummer, but obviously as a lyricist as well.
Well, we were having problems with the original drummer, just in the sense of, ambition and sense of direction musically. And so there came a time when we just kind of got our first American record deal. And at that moment, he just basically said, "Look, guys, I'm just not up for doing this." And so we quickly held some, auditions. And in one day came this tall, lanky, kind of goofy-looking guy with really short hair, and he had this tiny drum kit with like 18-inch bass drums, all packed in his car, driven in from St. Catharines, Ontario. And this was a day of auditions all day. I guess 2 drummers had come before him. He set up his drum kit, and because it's a small kit, and he's a big guy, he just loomed over this drum kit. And the first thing he does is start playing his patented triplets, like machine guns. And I looked at Alex and said, "Oh, okay." And within 5 minutes of jamming with him, I knew that this was the guy you can't let go of. And Alex was a little mad at me because we swore that we wouldn't get excited about any particular drummer until we auditioned all of them, and I was already talking to him about, joining the band and blah, blah, blah. But,
Right. You didn't even want to let the other guys in at that point.
Yeah,
right?
at that point, the next guy, poor guy who came in after him I felt really bad for him, believe me. I mean, he had written all the sheet music out, and he's playing these nice, polite versions of our first album, and going, "Oh my God." But Neil was just he was just unbelievable.
What about for you, Alex? When did it come to you that, well, actually you as well, Geddy, because as the singer in the band, it's a unique situation in that Neil writes almost all of the lyrics for Rush. So when did that talent that he brought to the band and that dynamic come to prominence? Did you know that right away when he came in, or around Fly-By-Night in that period did he say, hey, you know, I can write some words too?
Well, you know, after living with him for 4 or 5 months, we got to know him, and he's very well read. He enjoys reading a lot. You know, Geddy and I think, at the time were really more focused on the music. Lyric writing was not something that was foremost in our desires. And when Neil professed an interest in doing it, then it was a perfect opportunity to give him a job.
We actually suggested it to him.
Really?
Because we said, you know, like Alex said, we saw how much he reads and how verbose he was. We said, well, why don't you try writing lyrics? Because, you know, it's not something we're really keen on doing. And he said, okay. And I think the first lyric he wrote was Beneath, Between, and Behind.
Yeah, that's right. In the car, I think, when we were...
Well, yeah, we were
working on it.
Yeah, we were working on it because we were traveling. We were opening in those days for Uriah Heep on their American tour, and we were the first band, and then Manfred Mann's Earth Band would come on. So we played all of a 26-minute set back then.
Which was
so
two songs.
Yeah, so we had lots of time.
By touring the Snow Dog and one other or something like that.
We had lots of time to hang, you know.
Right.
So we would write sometimes in the car, but I think that's the first song.
Did you ever write some lyrics that you, as the singer, were, you know, I can't sing this, or, you know, what are you talking about here? Or because his lyrics can get sci-fi and kind of spacey at times. Were you always able to relate to them, or did you?
Well, some songs are difficult, and we discuss them a lot. But you know, a lot of times the songs are great, and you know, he's one of the greatest collaborators to work with because there's no ego in the collaboration. You know, he's happy to have written it. If it works, great. If it doesn't work, great. And as we've grown together as a songwriting family, so to speak, he's more and more considerate of how I'm going to express those songs, you know, vocally. And he gives great consideration to the meter. And in the early days, yeah, sometimes it was a mouthful for me to get all those words out, especially Beneath, Between, and Behind. I remember that one was tough. But these days it's a real pleasure because he'll write some lyrics out, and even if it's just one verse or one line that sparks a song for Alex and I to write, he's totally happy with that.
One more thing I have to ask you, and then of course we want to get into talking about the DVD. 31 years going on 32 with this lineup of Rush, the three of you guys working together, it's virtually unheard of in the music industry with any band. Where do you think the chemistry comes from? How do you think that you've been able to make it work where so many bands have lost members along the way or have drifted in and out, that you guys have, this core, this trio has remained so consistent?
Well, it's a complex answer. Obviously, there's the personal side of things. We're great friends, and we laugh a lot when we work together. So the whole chemistry between us personally is fun. It's never heavy, you know. Also, there's the whole business side of things. We decided a long time ago when we first got together that we wouldn't let financial issues or, you know, any of those kind of things interfere with what we were doing. We're here to make music, and you know, we can handle anything like that. And there's a particular remarkable commonality about the kind of music we like to play on stage. You know, Alex listens to different music than I listen to when we're off the road, and Neil as well. But when we get together, we all seem to want to rock in the same way, and I think that's no small part of the reason that we're still together.
Anything you want to add, Alex, about the amazing unity you guys have had all these years?
No.
It just feels right.
It just absolutely feels right.
And being a trio, I would imagine, too.
That makes it a little bit easier.
If you lost a guy, then you're losing a third of the group.
That's true.
You know?
I mean, there's no factions with three, you know, because we can have a meeting in the back of a car. You know, it's easy. It's a real functional number.
And before we move on, the last thing I need to ask you is, because it's just sitting right there, I have to ask you, the John Rutsey who played on the very first Rush album, what became of him? I imagine he's kicking himself 31 years later at this point. Do you still have contact with him?
You know, he might be quite happy with the decision he made. I mean, that was the decision he wanted to make at that time. I haven't seen John in about 15 years. But the last time I saw him, you know,
Yeah,
he was
okay
living
with
his
it.
life,
You know,
and
he moved on. I don't think he was
Absolutely.
really up for it, you know.
Yeah.
So I don't
It's
think
not like the Pete Best of Rush type of thing.
Yeah, he's not in another band trying to make it.
no, he
or
wasn't
anything.
kicked out. He
Right.
decided to leave on his
Right,
own.
right.
So I'm sure he's lived with that decision quite happily.
Well, we're going to get into talking about this awesome DVD and CD set that Rush have just released to chronicle their 30th anniversary. And we'll do that as I continue to hang with Alex Lifeson and Geddy Lee coming up. Today I have the tremendous privilege to be hanging with two members of one of my all-time favorite bands, Geddy Lee and Alex Lifeson of Rush, who recently celebrated a 30th anniversary and are marking that anniversary with a great new DVD and CD collection, which is now in stores. Rush R30 is a great new DVD set available in two versions that celebrates Rush's 2004 30th Anniversary World Tour. The 2 DVD version includes the band's entire Frankfurt, Germany concert, captured on September 24th, 2004, but that's just one disc. The second disc includes rare and classic performance footage spanning the band's entire career. The deluxe edition includes the aforementioned 2 DVDs, the soundtrack of the Frankfurt concert on 2 CDs, and limited edition guitar picks and a souvenir backstage pass. So guys, of all the places in the world that you've toured over the years, why was Frankfurt, Germany the place to make this DVD? Alex?
Well, in this case, we wanted to pick a date that was close to the end of the tour in a city that we were familiar with the hall. And Frankfurt worked out because we had a couple of days off before the show. We could get set up, do all our checks, unlike the Russian Rio DVD where we had no opportunity to check anything and went on late.
Which is chronicled in that DVD, actually.
Yeah,
It's
I mean, it's amazing that it happened. It was a miracle. But we really wanted to make sure that everything was set for this. And that hall worked very well for us. It's a pretty good sounding hall. And it made the show look that much more dramatic. It held smoke well. Makes the lighting look more powerful, a little more saturated. We were able to use a 14 camera HD high definition setup. So, you know, it was all a little bit different for us, and we needed a good place that we were able to do that.
And it had been a while, Geddy, since you guys played in Europe, right? In certain areas. So that had to make it special as well, too, because those people really starved for Rush, right?
Absolutely. And it's been about 12 years, and in some cases, like Sweden, I think almost 20 years since we'd been back there. And so this was a very big tour for us to come back. Our fans in Europe are long suffering. They've wanted us to come back for so long. We've disappointed them so many times. We really wanted to bring the full show. We wanted to do, you know, the best show we could possibly do. So it was a great time. I mean, the UK portion of the tour sold out so fast that we were just startled that they remembered us so well. And as we moved through all these different countries, Italy for the first time, Sweden, Germany, the fan reaction was so heartwarming and so welcoming that it just seemed appropriate to want to capture that.
Now, the pictures on the DVD, both the bonus stuff and the footage itself, the way it's shot, the look of it is just unbelievable. The audio is incredible sounding as well, especially in the surround sound mix. How involved do you guys actually get in the production of the DVD? I mean, after you do the show, you actually start getting involved in picking camera angles, maybe working on the mix, the packaging, or do you just kind of leave that to others and move on?
Well, we each have our own specialities. Alex mixed the sound for this, and that's something he loves to do, and he does a great job doing it. And I work with my brother and a number of editors, and we basically take care of the video portion. We oversee the editing, and most of the work is done by my brother, who's in the film business, and I just come in there to say thumbs up, thumbs down, or tweak this and tweak that. So he does all the hard work. I do the easy stuff. And Neil takes care of all the packaging, and he works with Hugh Syme, who's done all our album covers except one. The only crappy album cover is the one he didn't do. And so we all have our roles, you know, our specialities, and it works out well that way.
Right. Now, Rush is a band that was way before radio embraced the group, that was built on the live stage. And you guys have done a number of live recordings throughout your career, and some DVDs as well, whether it be All the World's a Stage, which I don't know how you guys feel about it, but it's still one of my favorites. That's the first live record. There's not a video for that, is there? You didn't shoot that show, did you?
I think video was around back then.
Wasn't invented yet.
That was what, 76, right?
Yes.
So that was the first one, and then of course Exit Stage Left and A Show of Hands and all the great live stuff that you've done. When you record, or in this case, videotape a show, as musicians, as performers on the stage, how aware are you of the fact that there's cameras and this is being documented? Does it affect your performance at all, positively or negatively?
You really try to rise above it. You are aware of it, but you really try to just put it as something in the peripheral view and concentrate on the show. And having done the show so many times and being at the end of the tour, I think we were able to rise above it and stay focused on what we were doing.
Right.
It is a challenge, though.
Right.
Yeah, you try to connect with the audience and you try to make that feed off it, but you always know that any little mistake is going to be picked up. So it's a real fine line of trying to be yourself, trying to be natural, trying to feed off the audience, and trying to avoid those clunkers that you're just going to go, oh. But we've gotten pretty good at it.
I don't know of any band that has a more loyal fan following than Rush. I mean, and I'm not just saying that because you're here.
No,
as you guys know, Rush fans are above and beyond the most loyal, fanatical fans that you can find. And you guys have taken so many different turns musically in your career, and they've embraced all of it. And it's something that in the bonus stuff on the DVD that I notice there's interviews with Geddy that start in about 78, is it? And then move into like the mid-80s and the 90s. And that's the one prominent theme, even then in the earliest interview that you mentioned, is that before radio, before TV, before anyone, it was the fans that really embraced this group. And I know that that means so much to you, and I know that it's got to be amazing to try to figure how to pick a set list now with the catalog you have and to try to keep all of them happy.
That's almost impossible.
Yeah.
I mean, which is one of the reasons we put this R30 overture together that opens the show and opened that tour. Neil had this idea because, you know, there were so many records we were overlooking, and at that time the set was what, 4 hours plus or something, and so we combined 6 or 7 songs, and a lot of them were the opening songs for those early albums that had kind of signature Rush riffs, and so we put them all together, and that was one way of satisfying it.
And you let the fans sing them, which is pretty funny. You don't even sing that.
Yeah.
And for me, it was a big tease because I love those songs, and I'm like, oh, you know what? But I understand why you need to do that. And the opening film, which you'll see if you buy the DVD as well, is pretty funny because it addresses all this with a very well-known actor who basically expresses his opinion about Rush before the show even starts. So much more to come as I continue to hang with Alex Lifeson and Geddy Lee, 2/3 of Rush, here at the VH1 Classic studio. As promised, I am back hanging with Geddy Lee and Alex Lifeson of Rush, who are here to talk about their amazing career and a great new DVD that's in stores now. And we will get to this copy of Permanent Waves and these Sharpie Minis in just a second. But first, more about the band's great new DVD and CD collection, which is in stores now. Rush R30 celebrates Rush's sold-out 2004 30th anniversary world tour, and it comes in 2 versions. The 2 DVD version includes the band's Frankfurt, Germany concert, captured on September 24th, 2004, and includes a set list that spans the band's entire career. But that's just the first DVD. The second DVD includes rare and classic performance footage. The deluxe edition also includes 2 live CDs and a limited edition guitar picks and souvenir backstage pass. So guys, since the R30 DVD was shot, you've been on somewhat of a break, right? You've taken a break from that, and there's some rumblings that the break is starting to end and you're starting to think about the next phase in the amazing history of Rush. Starting with you, Alex, what can you tell us?
Summer holidays are over, it's back to school. And it's been a nice break. We've been working very hard for the last 5 years, really. So it was nice to just get away from the whole machine and have some space with family, particularly. But now it's time to get back to work, and I think Geddy and I are going to we're planning.
We have a plan.
We have a plan.
We have a plan
to get together in the new year and start writing for the next album. So, you know, if all goes well, hopefully we'll be done by the summer, and then look to touring by the end of the year or the beginning of the following year.
Now, as far as writing, do you each work up ideas and riffs individually and then bring them together, or how does it work, or do you have to sit down together and...
We like to sit down together and just start jamming.
Right.
And, you know, it accomplishes a few things. We get our fingers in shape, and we kind of reacquaint each other's, you know, in terms of what we're playing and where our heads are at. And we get a lot of time to talk about how crappy that last thing was that we just played. And that spurs conversation about where to go. So I think it's a really important time for us to get past all the boring stuff and get into something new and fresh, and try to, you know, build up our focus on the future.
Sonically, though, direction-wise, you haven't gotten to that point yet where you can say, because that's the thing about Rush, there's so many different dynamics to the music over the years, whether it's the early stuff, the mid-period stuff, and time around Signals when more synthesizer sound started coming in, of course the big conceptual pieces. So you haven't even gotten to the point where which path you want to take.
Well, you know, there was a time where we brought things in from sound check jams, from tours and things like that, little bits and pieces that we might have been working on individually. But we realized the real fun in writing is when you start on that first day and the slate is absolutely clean. You have no ideas about anything.
Right.
And the spontaneity of that.
Yeah.
Is really key, especially when you've been a band that's been together this long.
Right.
Because you can very easily fall into, you know, patterns of playing.
Right.
And we want to try to push the envelope every time.
Right. And Neil's doing well. I mean, it's well known that Neil went through a tremendous tragedy within his family a few years ago. And there was a time, I know, when we've talked previously, that you said you were questioning whether Rush was even going to continue. And I know everyone's so thrilled that it has. But he's doing well, and he's in a good spot right now in terms of, you know, where he's at with the group.
Yeah, you know, every day is an improvement for him, and he is in a very good spot. He's writing a lot, writing a couple of books currently, and seems to be in a very good space.
Good, and he can still hit the drums like
sure can.
Yes, he can.
Nobody else. All right, guys, if you'd be so kind, this is actually one of my all-time favorite Rush albums, and we have these Sharpie minis. Actually, you can pick whatever color you'd like.
Okay.
And if you wouldn't mind signing next to your respective pictures there,
Pink?
we'd be... Well,
I'm
you never
choosing
know,
pink.
You know. You doing pink, Geddy?
I'm doing the pink, man.
You know, we'd be honored to add that to our wall of tremendous records that we have here, signed by some of the artists that have visited us here at VH1 Classic. So maybe a record next year, and I would imagine, being the road dogs you guys are, probably a pretty substantial tour, I would think, again, right?
I hope so, yeah.
And are you going to continue documenting the tours? Because for the most part, you've done a number of Rush in Rio, which was tremendous. I think it's great as a fan to have that as a souvenir after every tour. Is that something you'd like to do?
Well, I think the real benefit of the DVD technology is exactly what you've just said. The fact that you can go out and do a tour, and if you feel really good about it, you can capture it, and then the fan has that souvenir forever. So
Right.
I think it's something we will consider in the future.
Well, it's all great stuff. Pleasure to see you guys
Thank you,
again.
Eddie. Thank you so much.
Thanks
Thank you,
for
Eddie.
all the decades of amazing music. Alex Lifeson, Geddy Lee of Rush, the new DVD, which is truly phenomenal. Disc 1 and Disc 2. And I got to find the Easter eggs. You got to tell me where they are.
right.
That's in stores now. R30, pick it up. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Pleasure.